Hi, folks. How are you? I just want to go over our presentation on Cornell Notes on the nonfiction notice and note signposts. We're going to start off by just writing up on your Cornell Notes your objective, which is important. You put this on top of your Cornell Note sheets. Go ahead and write this in. A student will be able to take Cornell Notes on nonfiction notice and note signposts and write a summary answering the essential question. That's at the bottom. The essential question is, what are the nonfiction notice and note signposts, and how do they help me better understand a text? Okay, so let's go to the next slide and we'll take a look. Once you've signed this in, written this up on your Cornell Notes, you're going to go to the next slide. Here's what I'm asking you guys to do. Take Cornell Notes, watch and read this presentation. Take Cornell Notes, include questions on the left side of your notes, and then at the end, you're going to write a summary by rephrasing the essential question as a statement. Make sure to include the details from your notes in your summary. You should have at least 5 sentences in your summary. Okay. How do we use notice and note nonfiction when reading, or why do we do that? Well, it helps the reader to answer these 3 big questions. And again, you can put this in your notes. The questions are, what surprised me about the text? Why did the author think I already knew? What challenged, changed, or confirmed what I knew? Again, write this in your notes, and you can always pause the presentation while you write. Okay, next question. Well, this is what the question we talked about before, what surprised me. Really what you're thinking about when you're reading it is what shocked me about the text. I was surprised when something was said. I never thought this before. I could not believe this about the text. Or really? Are you serious? Those are the questions that you want to think about when you're reading. The other big questions are, what did the author think I already knew? Did I know what was being said? I was confused by what? The author assumed I knew stuff, but I didn't. And the author thought I knew, but I didn't. So a lot of times the author thinks you know more than you do. So this is an opportunity for you to identify that. And the other question is, what challenged, changed, or confirmed what I knew? At first I thought, but I changed my mind. I had to rethink about this issue because I never thought about it before. Or my understanding changed when I heard these facts and figures that supported this topic, and I was like, wow. Or I was wrong or right about this topic, and here's why. Okay, so what are the signposts? Again, this is what you're going to write in your notes. There are 5 signposts. The first one is contrasts and contradictions, similar to the ones from notice and note fiction. Again, the question that you're going to ask is, what does this make me wonder about? You know, this is when the writer presents something that contradicts what you know or think, and when the writer shows you a sharp contrast between people, groups, and ideas. In other words, something that really shows a difference between 2 things. And then you stop and ask, what does this make me wonder about? Okay, the next signpost is quoted words. When the author chooses to quote someone, stop and ask, why was this person quoted? And what did the quote add? What does this make me wonder about? In other words, there's a reason why the quote was put in the text, and you have to figure out, why is that in there? And I guess it gives you the example, the future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. Again, why is it there? The other 2 are extreme language. When the author makes a statement that allows for no exceptions, is unreasonable, or exaggerates, stop and ask, why did the author use this language? What does this make me wonder about? Why is the author using really strong language? This is the worst thing that happened in the world, or, when there's extreme language, you have to ask, Why is the author using this language? Word gaps. When the writer uses a word or phrase you don't know, stop and ask, do I know this word from another place? Does this look like a word that is only used within this topic? In other words, is it something that has to do with a very specific idea? Or did I see any clue in the sentence that might help me figure this out? It's a way to figure out if you don't know anything of what's being talked about, and the author is assuming that you know what you're talking about. This is where you put word gaps. The last one, numbers and stats. When the author uses specific numbers or statistical information, stop and ask, why did the author use these numbers? Maybe they're stating how many people died in a famine, or how wealthy was Bill Gates. Those kinds of stats and information are there for a reason. Okay, so how do we read using notice and notes, nonfiction? There's a structure on how when we read an article, you read. First of all, you survey the text, like what we did before. We just look at the text and look at the title, find words in each paragraph, circle them, find information about the author, and then you answer, what did I learn? Just like we did with some of the short stories we did before. Second, read the whole text. Mark the text or on the margins or anything that answers the question, what surprised me? Yeah, just going through quick. Wow, that's really cool. That information is really interesting. And then lastly, you're going to read the whole text a second time. Look and mark for nonfiction notice and no signposts in text as you read. Answer signpost questions with text reference. Okay, those questions that we talked about before. Finally, you're going to read the whole text a third time. This time, after we've done the notice and note, you're going to answer the question, what is the author's claim? What are they trying to say? What point are they making in the text? And then you want to include evidence from the text to support your claim. And that could be a point where you could look back at your notice and notes. Okay? I'm going to give you a couple of examples just to test your knowledge. Which notice and note signpost appears? Answer the anchor question. So this is from one of the articles that we read. Text number 1, keeping up with the Joneses is an idiom or popular phrase that refers to the pressure to keep up with your neighbor's social status, wealth, or popularity. It refers to the way people constantly compare to themselves to a neighbor and strive to accumulate the same material goods. So what notice and note is being used here, and what is the anchor question? Okay, stop, take a look, and see if you can answer that. The second example, by the mid-century, the Joneses had built up their wealth and enjoyed a grand lifestyle, thanks to their ties to a powerful New York bank. The family started hosting elaborate parties and made a list of 400 elite members of society to invite. Being on the 400 list was a sign of respect and popularity, and as a result, earning a spot on it became very competitive. Okay, which signpost is being used here, and what's the anchor question? And answer it. Okay, good. Here's the answers to number 1. Text 1, there was a quotation there. Keeping up with the Joneses. And keep up with your neighbor's social status. I know that there's no one who's specifically quoted, but why was this person quoted? Well, like I said, this person wasn't quoted directly, but why did the author use this particular quotation, and why was that important? And finally, the last one was numbers and stats. Obviously listed 400 list was there, and why was that important? Okay, finally, you're going to turn in your Cornell Notes, but you first have to answer the essential question. Turn the essential question, what are the nonfiction notice and note signposts, and how do they help me better understand a text? Write that as a statement, and then support it with facts and figures from your notes. It should be at least 5 sentences.